spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. So, good evening, everyone, and namaste. We are, of course, studying the life of Holy Mother, and we are about to begin the chapter, or is it a subchapter? Yeah, subchapter, Holy Mother in Jairambati. In May 1905, Holy Mother decided to visit Jairambati. Before her departure, she called for Swami Premananda to come from Bellarmine. She then handed the master's amulet to him. If you remember, this is the one that he left to her. He wore it on his arm all of his adult life, I guess. And he gave it to her, and she had kept it she had worn it for a while. But one time when she was on a train to, I think, Vrindavan, the master appeared to her and said, "No, you shouldn't wear that so openly. Someone could snatch it from your arm." And so she then kept it in a small box. And now it said, she called for Swami Premananda to come from Bellarmine. She then handed the master's amulet to him and asked him to worship it every day. She had carried it with her for many years, and now she wanted it kept in a safe place. Actually, as it happens, that amulet was stolen from Bellarmine. This is the thing, this is the kind of thing that happens. She did not want to risk taking it to Jairambati because someone might steal it if she became ill. This was the first time Holy Mother took the train to Jairambati. Krishnalal, Swami Dhirananda, and Brahmachari Ganin accompanied her to Vishnupur, arriving at 1:30 p.m. Ashu had gone to Vishnupur on the previous day to make arrangements for the mother to rest and eat at an inn. The mother was very pleased with the arrangements. Krishnalal and Ganin returned to Calcutta by the night train. She and all her companions left Vishnupur for Jairambati in the evening, taking 4 bullock carts. In the morning, they arrived at Koalpur. There was a small monastery at Koalpur, but there was also an inn there. In the morning, they arrived at Koalpur and had their room, had their meal in the inn, had their noon meal. In the morning, they arrived at Kotalpur, and had their noon meal at the inn. A palanquin was hired for Holy Mother and Radhu, while the others traveled in bullock carts. The previous year, Holy Mother had not attended the Jagadatri Puja in Jairambati. So this year it was done on a grand scale. Swami Sarada sent all the necessary articles from Calcutta. Now that was quite an undertaking for him to do that. Swami Sarada sent all the necessary articles from Calcutta. Holy Mother was highly respected in her community because the village observed how many famous and distinguished people would come to Jairambati for spiritual instruction from her. But she was extremely humble. Once, Ganesh Goshal of Kamarpukur, one of the master's schoolmates, came to visit the mother. When she was about to bow down to him, he protested and said, "Mother, it is inauspicious if a mother bows down to her son." He bowed down to the mother instead and received her blessing. In the later part of 1905, Brahmachari Girija went to Jairambati for initiation, accompanied by his friend Batu Babu. As soon as they arrived, Holy Mother told them, "My elder sister-in-law, Ramapriya, Prasanna's wife, has contracted cholera. She cooked lunch, fed the servants, and then all of a sudden began vomiting." Oh my. Oh, this is Mother telling about Ramapriya. This isn't Mother herself. My eldest sister-in-law, Ramapriya, Prasanna's wife, had contracted cholera. She cooked lunch, fed the servants, and then all of a sudden began vomiting. That's the end of the quote. There was no doctor or medicine anywhere available in Jairambati, and Ramapriya died within 12 hours. Her two daughters, Nalini and Maku, were very young. Prasanna was then working in Calcutta, and there was no one to look after them. So Holy Mother took responsibility for them, as she had done for Radu. Girija reconsidered asking for initiation under the sad circumstances. So instead, he asked for her permission to visit Visalakshmi in Antpur. No, in Anur. Is that right? Holy Mother said, "Well, you have come from such a distance and with a great expectation. You had better go and have your bath, and I shall give you a mantra." The ever-gracious Mother initiated Girija as well as Babu. The ever-gracious Mother. This is just the way she was. The ever-gracious Mother initiated Girija as well as Batu Babu, even though he was not a candidate. I'm sure he was very glad to receive the initiation. Shama Sundari's passing. In January 1906, on a cold winter day, Holy Mother, Shama Sundari, and some other women were sitting on the veranda, enjoying the early morning sun. At that time, a village woman came who made her living by buying vegetables from the, oh my goodness. Okay, market, and then selling them to the villagers in Jairambati. Holy Mother used to buy vegetables from her, and Shama Sundari would give her rice and mustard seeds in exchange. On that day, Shama Sundari was feeling well, and she even helped husk the paddy. She left to answer the call of nature. When she came back, she lay down on Kali Kumar's veranda. Shama Sundari told Ashu, "My child, I feel dizzy. Perhaps this is the end." She'd felt well. This was how gracious and graceful her passing was. She'd felt well. She went to answer a call of nature. She came back and she felt dizzy. And she said, "Perhaps this is the end." Holy Mother and other family members rushed to Shama Sundari's side. She expressed a desire to eat pumpkin curry, and Holy Mother assured her she would cook it for her when she got well. Shama Sundari then realized her last moment had arrived. She asked to drink some water. Now this will give you some idea of why she was Holy Mother's mother. She was so self-aware. She was utterly undistracted by the world. This is what was said of her. She wasn't worldly in the least. She was so simple and humble. Shamasundari then realized her last moment had arrived. She asked to drink some water, and Holy Mother poured Ganges water in her mouth 3 times. With her fingers on her mother's head and chest, she repeated a mantra. At 9 o'clock that morning, Shamasundari breathed her last. Holy Mother wept loudly. Holy Mother's brothers, Bharada and Kalikumar, carried their mother's body to the bank of the Amadar and cremated it there. The next day, Holy Mother asked her brothers to arrange their mother's Shraddha ceremony. The next day, Holy Mother asked her brothers to arrange their mother's Shraddha ceremony, and a list of necessary items was prepared. Ashu left for Calcutta with the list. Swami Saradananda arranged to get the articles and sent Ashu back to Jairambati within 3 days. The Shraddha ceremony was performed on a grand scale. Many people were fed with various dishes, including pumpkin curry, to fulfill Shamasundari's last wish. Moreover, various things were donated to needy people. Holy Mother was exhausted by grief. Now here again we see this is the Mother of the universe, but appearing in human form. She shares, and this is why we can go to her with anything. She knows our sorrows. She knows our joys. She knows our grief. She knows our feelings of pleasure. And she doesn't condemn anything. She doesn't judge anything. Holy Mother was exhausted by grief and the hard work required to manage this ceremony. And of course, Mother didn't just sit back and watch other people work. She worked every moment. It took her a month to recover. She was worn down physically, and she felt empty. So this is what I mean. Mother understands. Mother understands when we get worn down and feel empty. Her mother had been her support, her friend, and her guide. Shamasundari was a strong woman who endured many difficulties. She calmly faced poverty after her husband's death and brought up her children heroically. When she married Sarada to Ramakrishna, she suffered for a few years. Well, that's because of all the rumors that were circulating about Ramakrishna at the time, that he was mad, that she'd married her daughter to a madman. The villagers were, perhaps unwittingly, but they were cruel about it. When she married Sarada to Ramakrishna, she suffered for a few years. Along with the other villagers, she initially thought Ramakrishna was insane. Later, of course, her joy knew no bounds when she saw people coming to Jairambati from all over the country to worship her daughter as a goddess. Her joy knew no bounds, but she never put on any airs about it. She never got puffed up with pride about it. She was always her humble, simple self, always willing to serve and always willing to be of service to others. She also witnessed the master's prediction being fulfilled. And here's the prediction: Mother, your daughter will have so many children that her ears will burn from constantly being called mother. What a way to put it, huh? I'll read that again. This is Sri Ramakrishna's prediction. He said this to Shama Sundari. Mother, your daughter will have so many children that her ears will burn from constantly being called mother. Shama Sundari was a simple, sweet village woman. She was extremely fond of the Master's disciples, and she was overjoyed when Holy Mother's disciples and devotees addressed her as Didima, or grandmother. Yes. Deeply religious, Shama Sundari considered her household to consist of God and godly people. And when one holds that idea, when one really embodies that idea, of course, that's what happens. She considered her household to consist of God and godly people. Occasionally she had a glimpse of Holy Mother's divine personality. She once said, "Child, who are you? Do I really know your true nature?" Holy Mother replied with a show of annoyance. Mother didn't show annoyance very often. Holy Mother replied with a show of annoyance, "What do you think I am? Do you see me with 4 arms? If I were not a human being, why should I have been born of your womb?" I'm going to repeat that because this is the mother that we can know, the mother who says this about herself. Mother replied with a show of annoyance, "Who do you think I am? Do you see me with 4 arms? If I were not a human being, why should I have been born of your womb? Why should I have been born of your womb?" Another day, Shama Sundari said to her, "May I have a daughter like you in my next birth, and may my husband have plenty of money. It is so painful to bring up children in dire poverty." "Why do you drag me in?" Holy Mother replied. "Do you mean to say that I should bring up your children again?" Holy Mother was responsible for her younger brothers, of course. "Why do you drag me in?" Holy Mother replied. "Do you mean to say that I should bring up your children again?" Holy Mother was extremely devoted to her godly parents and served them with her heart and soul. She later said about them, "My father was a great devotee of Ramachandra and was extremely benevolent. My mother was also very loving and compassionate. That is why I was born in this family. My mother was like the goddess Lakshmi. She would collect and keep everything neatly ready for Jagadatri Puja. She would collect and keep everything neatly ready for Jagadatri Puja. She would say, 'Mine is a family of devotees and gods. Perhaps during the festival, my Sarada, And by that she meant Swami Trigunatitananda will come, and Jogin, Swami Yogananda. She regarded them as her sons. She was so sweet to Trigunatitananda. Perhaps during the festival, my Sarada, Swami Trigunatitananda will come, and Jogin, Swami Yogananda, may come. So she would preserve good rice and other things for the festival. She further said, as long as I am here, Brahma is here. So is Vishnu, Shiva, and Jagadamba. When I go, they also will accompany me. Is it possible for you to take care of those deities and devotees? Is it possible for you to take care of those deities and devotees? My home is the abode of gods and devotees. And like I say, when you hold that thought, really sincerely hold that thought, what Swami Vivekananda says is, the macrocosm will mirror the microcosm. And so you will actually have that experience. Of course, not all deities are all that. So her sons were somewhat difficult, but some of the deities are also difficult. Gopal Ma's passing. Oh my. Gopal Ma's passing. After losing her mother, Holy Mother returned to Calcutta in April 1906 and lived in the same rented house at 2/1 Bug Bazaar Street. Among the women devotees of Ramakrishna, Yogin Ma and Golap Ma and Gopal Ma were Holy Mother's trusted companions. And for those of you who haven't said it, heard me say it before, Sri Ramakrishna said these women had all been gopis during the Rasa Leela of Krishna and Radha in Vrindavan. And they had asked for the boon to be born with Mother as her companions. So the women devotees of Ramakrishna, Yogin Ma, Golap Ma, and Gopal Ma were Holy Mother's trusted companions. Toward the end of her life, Gopal Ma was staying with Nivedita in her school, and Holy Mother regularly went to see her. One day Gopal Ma said to her, Gopala, you have come. Look, you have sat in my lap all these days. Now you take me on your lap. Now, of course, Gopala is a way of addressing Krishna. One day, Gopal Ma said to her, Gopala, you have come. Look, you have sat on my lap all these days. Now you take me on your lap. The mother took Gopal Ma's head on her lap and caressed her affectionately. Shortly before Gopal Ma's death, Holy Mother went to her bedside. The saintly lady said feebly, the saintly lady said feebly, is it you, Gopala, who have come? And she stretched out her hand. Holy Mother did not understand what she meant, but an attendant explained to her that Gopal Ma was looking upon her as Gopala and wanted to take the dust of her feet. Holy Mother was hesitant, but the attendant took the dust of the mother's feet with the corner of her cloth and put it on Gopal Ma's head. So the attendant took the dust of the mother's feet with the corner of her cloth and put it on Gopal Ma's head. Holy Mother returned to her residence with a heavy heart. The end came at dawn on 8 July 1906. Gopal Ma was carried to the Ganges, where she breathed her last, touching the holy water. A monk bent over her and whispered in her ear the words that a Hindu loves to hear at the last hour. Om Ganga Narayana. Om Ganga Narayana Brahma. Laughter and tears are part of human life. Now, let me remind you now what we're hearing is this is Swami Chaitananda speaking to us. This great Swami, this great writer. Laughter and tears are part of human life. All human beings encounter happiness and misery. Holy Mother experienced the pain of separation from her dearest ones, her husband, father, uncle, mother, brother Aboy, disciple Yogananda, companion Gopal Ma, and others. But she continued her journey to full. So she lost all these people and others, but she continued her journey to fulfill her mission, and holding her she continued to fulfill her mission, holding her Yogamaya. Oh, yeah, that's right. What held her to this world, Yogamaya, holding her Yogamaya, Radhu, in her arms. There's a footnote. Yogamaya is the divine power that fulfills the wishes of God. So that now we've come to chapter 19, and that we ended chapter 18 talking about Radhu as Yogamaya. So now this chapter is about Radhu. And there's a quote from the Chandi, chapter 5, verse 65. Salutations to the Divine Mother, who exists in all beings in the form of mercy. Salutations to her again and again. That's part of the Sarva Bhuteshu sequence. So I'll read that again. Salutations to the Divine Mother, who exists in all beings in the form of mercy. Salutations to her again and again. As explained in chapter 18, Radhu was an incarnation of Yogamaya. Yogamaya is a special divine power that helps to fulfill the wishes of God. We find in the Bhagavata that Krishna called upon Yogamaya for his own birth. So he, Krishna, asked Yogamaya to be born as a daughter of Yashoda. And he himself entered the womb of Devaki. When Vasudeva exchanged the children, Krishna used Yogamaya. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. We find in the Bhagavata that Krishna called upon Yogamaya for his own birth. He asked Yogamaya to be born as a daughter of Yashoda, and he himself entered the womb of Devaki. Then Vasudeva exchanged the children. This is because Kamsa had said he was going to kill Krishna as soon as he was born. So when Krishna was born, to Devaki. The children were exchanged. And so, of course, Kamsa didn't kill the girl child, and Krishna was spirited away to Vrindavan, where he was raised by Yashoda as her very own and became Gopala, the cowherd boy. Krishna used Yogamaya again during the Rasa Lila when he multiplied himself to dance with the gopis. Ramakrishna also used Yogamaya to fulfill his mission. One day at Dakshineshwar, Ramakrishna stood on the semicircular veranda and called out, "O Maya, please come." Gauri Ma was with him. Ramakrishna called out, "O Maya, please come." Gauri Ma was with him. Astonished, she asked the master why he was summoning Maya. The master explained that the natural tendency of his mind was to soar to a very high realm, and it was hard to bring it down. He was calling for Maya so that his mind would stay in a lower plane, making it possible for him to help his devotees, his disciples. Once, when Holy Mother was asked what the master's main characteristic what the master's main characteristic was, she replied, renunciation. Ramakrishna practiced and demonstrated fully the monastic ideal, but it was not possible for him to demonstrate the life of an ideal household. Of course, he taught householders their duties, as M recorded in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. But his devotees always saw him as a God-intoxicated Paramahamsa, rather than as a regular householder. To complete his mission, he used Yogamaya in the form of Radu in Holy Mother's life, so that Holy Mother could be an example to householders. Otherwise, people would say that Ramakrishna came only for monastics. Now I'm going to pause for a moment and talk about an incident that happened in the Master's life. As all of you who studied the life of Ramakrishna know, he fell and very badly hurt his arm when he was on the way to the Pine Grove one day to answer a call of nature. I think it was on his way back, actually. I don't remember. Yeah, I think it was on his way back. And he didn't have anybody to help him. There was no attendant to help him. So when he became God intoxicated, as he often did, he would just fall down. And this time he fell down and hurt his arm. And this was an example, he said himself, of Yogamaya coming to him so that he could be with the devotees and more fully understand human suffering. This was well before his cancer in the throat started. So he hurt his arm. It was a long time healing. And he said that it happened so that he could understand the suffering of human beings, because his mind would soar away from suffering. We could see this in his final months. Though he had cancer in the throat, and almost certainly it had metastasized to the rest of his body. And yet he would be able to carry on conversations with Dr. Sarkar and others as if nothing were happening. So these things happened, as it says here. Otherwise, people would say that Ramakrishna came only for monastics. Even though Ramakrishna and Sarada Devi appeared in two different human forms. I'm going to start that again. Even though Ramakrishna and Sarada Devi appeared in two different human forms, in essence, they were the same entity. As on many occasions the Master said, Sarada is my Shakti, so also Holy Mother said, remember that the Master and I are the same. Now, this is very hard for us to grasp. I mean, we can grasp it intellectually, but for us to know it in our heart, this is one being who quite deliberately appeared in two forms in order to serve in different ways to fulfill this great mission. Remember that the Master and I are the same. The scriptures say that Shakti and the upholder of Shakti are identical, just as fire and its power to burn. So now we have the frame of reference, the context for Radhu. And now Radhu's important role as Yoga Maya. And again, let's keep in mind, well, before I go ahead, there's time. Good, yeah, it's only just a little after 8:30. Are there any questions or comments about what we've read so far? It's always good to stop and if there's anything in anyone's mind to...
I have a question, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Sham.
How did Shama Sundari know that her end was near on such a short time?
The holy people know. The holy ones know. Just how they know, they actually can even be in control of it. I don't know that Shama Sundari was, but certainly Swami Prabhavananda was. And also, when Swami Swahananda was nearing the end of his life, he had told people when his passing would be. And as that time neared, one of his disciples came to see him and was weeping and saying, "Oh, Swami, you can't leave us yet. Please don't leave us yet." And I'm told, I wasn't there, but with a mild annoyance, he said, "Oh, dry up your tears. I've put it off for 2 years. I've delayed it for 2 years." And that's exactly what happened. 2 years later, he died. And he told his doctor how and when he would die. And he told her and Dr. Das, his other doctor, but he had a woman doctor who was looking after him very attentively. He said, "Don't let them call 911. Just let me go." And he said to her, what will take my body is a massive stroke. And she said, "Oh, no, not a stroke, Swami, please, not a stroke. because you might be, in that vegetative state. And he said, no. And he made that gesture. I wasn't there, but I was told by someone who was in the room. No, massive stroke and go. And that's exactly what happened. He had a massive brainstem stroke. No possible recovery. Of course, his attendants called 911 in defiance of his wishes, didn't let him go right away. So that happened on a Wednesday. And he was taken to the hospital. Of course, he wasn't, he was still tied to the body because they kept the body alive with machines. But it was a Friday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon before they finally turned off the machines. And because they had convinced themselves there was no possibility of recovery from the stroke. The doctors had. I know this because I was there. I mean, I actually was physically present. So these holy ones, Sham, they have some sense of what's happening, that their body is about to release the spirit. Anything more to follow up on that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Namaste, everybody.
Yeah, hello, Shailesh. Namaste.
I've been following one of a monk. He is a monk. His name is Anand, and he's a real life soul, and he has given a lot of talks about all the yogic procedures and what happens at the time of death, and then everything else. And just in this situation, I can just say that holy people, they see divine beings, and some relatives, maybe some pious relatives are divine beings most of the time. And ordinary people will see, not so divine beings. And then people who have done bad karma, they will see actually quite frightening beings coming and taking them away. So I think in her case, definitely, and I have been reading a lot about it. And even people who have lived a pious life, they will see some good signs. I mean, especially there will be someone who will come over to take them, and they will see that. Yeah. I think that's the gist I got through his talks.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Comments, questions, amplifications?
Hello, Brother Shankara, this is Naveen.
Yes, Naveen.
Yeah, on this topic, I think, Brother Shankara, most of the, I haven't experienced it, but I think that most of the people know when they are ready to depart. But the point is that they are not ready to accept it, and they, because of the fear of death or something, and they're not ready to accept that this is the time, and they, so it's like what's the ignorance or take over them. So only the, which we call holy people, they know what it is and they happily accept it and they go on that path. Other human being, though their body and the gut feeling, it says it is the time, but they are not ready to accept it, keep denying it, and that is why all the misery or what we see in generally, which happens. But my feeling is that everybody in their inside, they know their time to go.
Yes, that well may be true. There are many, many stories by people who work in hospice. There are some recent books published. I don't remember the titles, but they're about what people say in their last days or hours. And many, as you say, are unwilling to accept what's happening and struggle against it. But others, even though they don't seem to be outwardly holy people, they're very content with what's happening, and they do see angels and other divine beings. It's remarkable. You can find information about that if you Google it on the, you'll find that there are just Google last words spoken by people who are dying, and you'll find these books. And there's also TED Talks about it. So yeah, we don't quite understand what's going on, but those people who are disciples of the great ones, they do see them coming. They do see them coming to take them. This we've been told by many people. Anything else?
Brother Shankara.
Yes, Michaela.
Hi. I just wanted to tell you that I did suffer 3 TIAs, and I actually was not that close with my grandfather, and from India, and it was during the time that I had suffered the TIA that I saw a man by my altar, a very tall man, and he was 6'8", by my altar in my bedroom. And I was telling everybody that somebody had come in my house and broken in, and I was in fear now because there was a man staring at me. And then later I found out it was my grandfather. So it was during that time. And so it was a lot of right brain. And during the time of the stroke, until the healing of the left brain started to occur, it was more that you're in a state of right brain and not the left brain, kind of like what Jill Boynton was talking about. So
Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor, I find it as a blessing that I got that experience, and I'm very blessed that my brain I'm working with a doctor that it's coming back together. But I just suffered 3 TIAs in August. So
That's very recent. Well, your speech has not been much affected, at least not as we can tell. And that's a blessing. But I'm sure there are other effects. And it was indeed a blessing to see your grandfather. That would be considered a near-death experience.
well, I take it that, the higher teaching is that we're all one. So the reality then is that my grandfather appeared to me because maybe I was on the point of death at that moment, and so he was a reflection of the love of the Holy Spirit, because that's all at that point that I could accept. To accept oneness, it's how we've talked before, climbing the ladder. I'm not there yet, so it probably would have been too much. And so I needed that assistance at that time.
Well, don't feel bad about where you are on the ladder, dear. That's just perfect. Exactly what happened is just perfect. So it is a great blessing, and it's reassuring. I'm sure you feel reassured by that experience.
Well, I do, and I work as a nurse, and I've worked in hospice and everything. And it's true, as the others have said, that before my patients pass away, usually a couple days before, they'll tell me that a family member has come in. And even though that family member has been deceased, they are so sure of it. And so it's really beautiful. And then the ones that don't have that spiritual connection, when they do pass away, we always make sure we're around the bed for them. And we try to tell them to go to the light and make it peaceful, because sometimes their family members don't show up, and so they're alone dying in a nursing home. But their faces, they die with the face of it. It's fear. It's a different, even though you're there to reassure them, they don't, it's a different look on their face.
Well, as Shailesh pointed out, there are sometimes people are not, what comes to usher the spirit into this transformation is not benign. And so I'm sure that that fear on their faces reflecting what it is that they're experiencing. But the fact that you're there and saying this to them is a blessing for them. You may be sure of that.
Yes, and I just want to kind of tell you too that for about 2 to 3 weeks, there was not much of the left brain. And the interesting thing is that I had other people drive me to the pharmacy and to Walmart to get my prescriptions and things. And everybody started showing up in my peripheral vision of my past in this lifetime.
Bah.
And they would just look at me and smile. And it was people from other states and even other countries. And I was like, wow, they all are here. They all know about my stroke. And then when my left brain started coming back about 2-3 weeks later, I realized that none of them were there. This was all my perception, and it was being brought to my attention to be healed on
Yes.
level. And that's kind of like at a near death experience. So it's almost like it comes to you to heal it.
Well, it's interesting. Vivekananda, in a letter to one of his friends, said, "We are all together at one point. We don't experience it, but we're all together at one point." So we experience what we experience in our waking, dreaming, and dreamless state, and interpret it as best we can, given our state of ignorance.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Anybody else? All right. Well, we'll read on a little bit. Yeah, we have some minutes left. Radhu's important role as Yogamaya. When we observe the enduring when we observe the unending suffering that Radhu caused Holy Mother, we feel pained, yet we are indebted to her. Radhu helped Holy Mother keep her mind on the earthly plane for 20 years so that she could carry out her divine play in this world. It is a sight to see. It is a sight to see the Divine Mother behaving like a regular village woman, involved with her brothers' families and their children, and at the same time initiating spiritual aspirants, giving sannyasa to young disciples, and guiding the monks of the Ramakrishna order. During the last 30 years of her life, She initiated and instructed hundreds of monastics and householders, and also demonstrated to them their respective ideals. Now, what does it mean, demonstrated to them their respective ideals? She embodied what it was that would be their spiritual ideal, their chosen ideal. So when it says demonstrated, they had some experience of their chosen ideal, Mother coming to them in the form of that ideal. Regarding Holy Mother, Saradananda once remarked, I have never seen in anyone else such attachment, nor have I seen such detachment. Now this is, though it's being expressed in a worldly sense about the attachment, this is yoga. This is union. Mother was not attached in the ordinary sense at all. This is yoga maya. This is that divine attachment. If you remember, some couple, 3 times back, somebody asked her about that, and she said, you just don't understand. So Sardananda once remarked, I have never seen in anyone such attachment nor have I seen such detachment. In other words, both meanings of the word yoga. There may be another mystery behind Holy Mother's attachment for Radha. Now again, this is Swami Chaitananda writing to us about his researches. There may be another mystery behind Holy Mother's attachment for Radha. Just as some seekers of worldly prosperity abandoned Ramakrishna when he found, just as some seekers for worldly prosperity abandoned Ramakrishna when they found he was suffering from cancer, so also some people stopped visiting Holy Mother when they saw she was entangled with Radha and her family. Thus the Master protected her from insincere worldly people. He used to say, let the boat be in the water, but not water in the boat. Let a spiritual aspirant live in the world, but let not worldliness enter him. Sri Ramakrishna said, let the boat be in the water, but not water be in the boat. Let a spiritual aspirant live in the world, but let not worldliness enter him. Holy Mother is a living example of the Master's teaching. In her childhood, Radha was a charming girl, and her simple, innocent nature attracted people. Holy Mother poured her love and affection upon her little niece. Radha called her Aunt Ma, or Mother, and she addressed Surabala, her biological mother, as Nedima, her bald mother. I think that's because in her madness she had cut her hair off. Oh yes, it says that. Since she had shaved her head, as was the custom for Hindu widows. Radha herself was not greedy or demanding, but her mother was terribly jealous when Holy Mother gave presents to her brothers and other nieces. She wanted the mother to give everything to Radha and told the girl, my sister-in-law is generous to others. She is keeping nothing for you. Why should you live with her? come away to my house. And of course, that just wasn't possible. Her house was a mess. Annoyed, Radhu would scold her mother, and she avoided her. Annoyed, Radhu would scold her mother, and she avoided her. Holy Mother fulfilled all of Radhu's wants, and Radhu was happy. Holy Mother raised Radhu as her own daughter. She braided her hair, dressed her, fed her, and sent her to school. A woman devotee recorded in her reminiscences how Holy Mother made plans for Radhu's future. It was late in the morning. Radhu was ready to go to the Christian missionary school of the neighborhood. Golapma said to the mother, Radhu is now a grown-up girl. Why should she go to school anymore? She asked Radhu not to go to school. Radhu began to cry. The mother said, she is not quite grown up. Let her go to school. She can do immense good to others if she gets an education, and learns some useful arts at the school. Through education, she will not only improve herself, but will be able to help others. So Radhu was allowed to continue her schooling. In the evening, Holy Mother practiced japa in the shrine and asked Radhu and her cousin Maku to sit with her. The mother ate a little of Mother Simahavani's holy earth and gave some to Radhu. She also disciplined Radhu when she behaved improperly. One day, Radhu's sari was above her knees. Immediately, the mother said, what is this? A woman should maintain modesty. Her sari should not be above the knees. Another day, Radhu was running down the steps of the Udbodhan house, and her anklets were making a jingling sound. Holy Mother stopped her and said, Radhu, are you not ashamed? My monastic children are staying downstairs, and you are running down the steps with your anklets on. Tell me, what will they think of you? Take off the anklets right now. My children are not living here for fun. They have come here to practice spiritual disciplines. Do you know the consequences if their practices are disturbed? At this, Radhu took off the anklets and angrily threw them at Holy Mother. Radhu was a sickly girl and mentally stunted. Despite her shortcomings, Holy Mother loved her. One day in Udbodhan, something got into Radhu's eye. She ran to the mother and lay down, putting her head on the mother's lap. She said, look, there is something in my eye, and it is burning. Please pass your hand over my eye, then it will be all right. Smiling, the mother pushed Radhu's head close to her, and gently passed her hand over Radhu's eye. Radhu said, my eye is all right now. I don't feel any pain. So it's after 9 o'clock. We'll leave it there because we're about to go into a different phase of Radhu's life. So any final comments or questions? Anything at all? Okay. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. O name, stream down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drowned deep in the waves of his bliss, chanting his name continually, tasting his nectar at every step, bathing in his name, that bath for weary souls. So because this is Navaratri, we can replace all the his words in that opening of Chaitanya's prayer with her. Chant her name unceasingly. Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga. Om. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. So glad each of you were here. Swayam, did you get my voicemail message? Oh, she must be muted.
I have not checked yet, Brother Shankara.
I left you a voicemail regarding you.
Okay, I will listen to it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good night, everyone. And if you want to
Good
call
night.
if you want to call me, call me. So good
Okay.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Jai
night.
Shri Guru Maharaj Ji ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you go in Mother's loving and protective embrace. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. Jai Ma. Good night, everyone.
Good night.